Here we go. So, GeekyKOOL presents The Professor and Ace, episode 14. Last week I said episode 12. I was wrong. That was episode 13. So I think I'm just going to have to use a little thing on my keyboard here.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, welcome to episode 14. We decided to do something a little different today, guys. So, one, I'm sitting outside. So, if you hear weird noises, that's one of the weird, different things we're doing today. The second thing is that Ace and I decided we are both going to create top five lists of our favorite TV moments from 2000 to present.
And
So, that
I had to limit mine because I had too many, so I actually went 2010 to present.
Yeah, most of mine are actually from that 2000 to 2010 mark, so it should be interesting. And I'm actually going to write an article giving my top 10 and do some of that because there were things that I just was gnashing my teeth to take off the list. I know you had 30, and I know how painful that was.
I had 30, and then so basically I was like looking at the 30, and Keith was messaging me, and he's like, just flip a coin, and I can't. I have to like narrow things down. So I did the last 10 years, and then I did these five are from moments in TV that are from hour-long episodics instead of like sitcoms or 30 minutes, just because, yeah, girl couldn't make up her mind.
Well,
And
that happens.
it's
So, well, let's get it started, and we'll talk about it, and let's do this whole thing of where we talk about why the moment's important that we're picking, but also about why the show's important to us because
right.
we don't typically pick moments from shows that aren't important to us and mean
Love
something.
Boy, yeah, no. All of my
So
shows, I've seen every episode of every single one of them, and one of them that says a huge amount because yeah, there's decades and decades of
right,
episodes.
right. So I'll have you go first,
Oh,
and we're gonna add a photo up here with it. But you're gonna tell me which photo I'm adding here.
okay. So my number five is Gilmore Girls. But it's not the it was not the series. It is actually the Netflix A Year in the Life, and I'm
Oh
so
wow.
a moment. I'm picking the actual like reboot of that, being A Year in the Life. The reason I picked that is I have watched every episode of Gilmore Girls. I love the wit. I love the characters. Um, the banter, the way they talk to each other is how I talk. My son used to be like, "Mom, if I was a girl, we would be Lorelai and you." Um, and Amy Sherman Palladino writes women like that. I love that. And
Mhm.
um, Amy left the series or was exited the series for political reasons, and we all know how that goes. Um, and so all the creators left the season, or before the last season started, and they brought in new writers, and I still enjoyed it, but it wasn't the same. And
Right.
so Amy had always had the way she wanted this series to end, and she was like, I had the last line from the very first time she wrote this. She knew what the last line of the series was going to be, and she wasn't allowed to do it. And so this was a way of going back. They've been off the air for a while, and whatever's
Right.
happened in their lives and stuff. And I couldn't just pick one moment. I just like that they brought the creators back to give them the closure and give the characters the actual closures that they should have had. And that's one of the reasons I picked it. There's not one like moment in it. It's just that moment of, okay, let's let the creators do this. Let's see how Lorelai and Luke are and how Rory is. And it ended with the way Amy wanted it to end.
Right.
It wasn't as impactful because,
Mm.
if it ended, if nobody's seen it, spoiler, but Amy wanted it to end with Rory telling her mom she's pregnant. That's how the series was always going to end. Is they're sitting somewhere and she looks at her mom and she's like, "Mom, I'm pregnant," which would have been way more impactful if she would have been in high school if it had ended, or if she would have been right out of college, because it did end when Rory was out of college. Of course, now she's in her 30s, so it's not quite as impactful.
Right.
But it was still the closure that they wanted to bring, and I picked that for that reason. I just wanted, I love that they got to bring their characters and then their initial, like, if you are a writer and you write these characters and you create these characters and you have where you want them to end,
Right.
and someone else comes in and just turns it and it doesn't end like that, that's got to be heartbreaking. So I picked that for that reason.
No, I could definitely see that. I actually have never seen the Gilmore Girls. I've heard good things. I'm not opposed to it. I'm not giving it hate or anything like that. It just was never on my radar. But I've heard it's a really well written show. My daughter likes it a lot, and so that's awesome. I think that's fantastic. So we did not set a parameter that these had to be geeky by any means, and so it's actually kind of geeky just to talk about our favorite shows and moments. So I think that's kind of cool. So just so people know, if you're tuning in, don't be hating on Ace if you didn't. You're like, well, how did she not mention this or this or this? Because this is her list. So just as I'm going to give my list, and so
like all the movies or all the TV shows that I have picked actually have a fandom.
Yeah.
Obscure that people don't know what they are. Like, you've never seen Gilmore Girls, but you actually at least know that it exists.
Right. Yeah.
There is one on my list that he has never heard of, and I'm shocked by that. I'm shocked. We will get into that in a moment because it's actually up on the list a little bit. So
yeah. Well, that'll be interesting. So that's always a really cool thing, because then you find out about people and you find out about things that you don't know as much about. So I'm going to go with a little series based off of a movie. And the movie was good, but the series was better, in my opinion. We're going Stargate SG-1.
Stargate.
And so here's the moment that made the series for me, that made me love the series even more. This is their 100th episode, and the whole idea of this episode was that they open a wormhole and they connect to a planet that has a black hole that's basically consuming it. So it changes time, and in the process, it causes them to relive the same day over and over and over again. Very much a Groundhog Day scenario. Have you seen this episode, AJ?
I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love Stargate. I do think that the TV series, it's one of those times where I like the TV series more.
Yeah. Right.
Because there are certain shows and certain stories that I feel like need to be televised or
right,
because of the backstory and the characters and trying to push those all in, it's just a little hard. So no, I like your choice there.
So with this episode, there's a scene, and that's what I'd flashed up here. I'll put it up there again. The scene of them golfing through the wormhole. Yeah. And so you take two of the characters that have been around. Jack was in the original movie, different actor, but he's there. But you have Teal'c, who introduced in the very first episode. Two characters that are usually pretty serious.
Right.
These guys are usually pretty serious, and actually, I felt like this episode actually bonded their characters well beyond where they had been before. And so the fact that they both are the only people that know they're going through this over and over and over again. And so in this part of the episode, they're like, what's going to happen? We're going to relive the same thing over and over again. What's the worst that's going to happen? So they open up a wormhole and start golfing through it. It's hysterical. It's the funniest thing.
It's the where it is the Groundhog Day moment where he's like, if I die, I just wake up.
Right.
Moment, like, what's the worst that can happen? We replay this day again.
Right.
So no, I get it.
So that to me was one of those key moments to where I went from really liking the show to like, okay, this is a must watch. This is the series of that time. I'm like, this is the show that I'm really digging the most. And it did that up until the time Jack left, and even a little bit after that. But as things change, that's just the way it goes. But I love the series. I love that moment. That was a defining moment for me on that series. All right, so let's go to number 4 on our list.
Number 4 is the Downton Abbey.
Downton Abbey. All right.
Okay.
There we go.
This is like not guys haven't watched Downton Abbey, it starts with the sinking of the Titanic. So 1919, really early. Like it's aristocrats and then their help. And the people you saw on the screen was Carson the butler and Mrs. Hughes, the head housekeeper. So basically, they're in charge of all of the staff, and they are Carson especially is very, very, very old fashioned and very stuck in his ways. They're in their 50s, and neither one of them have been married. And this is actually from season 5, so this is way into the series.
So at 50, he's still really young. I just want to say that.
But not to never have been in love or been married.
Well, that's true. That's true. I agree. It's
So,
still really young. I mean, it's like horribly young. It's like it's like almost 20.
but back into I mean, she's considered an old maid. Like not
Right.
just her, but like she's like in her 50s and never been like she's courted, but she's never actually been in a relationship.
Right.
And this moment is the moment that they take their friendship and their companionship and their complete they just trust each other with everything.
Right.
And she tricks him into taking all of the staff who are there to the beach. Like when I say she tricks him, he wants to go to a museum and do something stuffy, and she like puts postcards. Like she totally like womanized that to get what she wanted. And they're standing there and they're getting ready to wade into the water, and she says that like if you need help, you can hold my hand. And he was like, that would be risque. Like, what would people say? And she, at that moment, she looks at him and she goes, we're too old to care what people say.
Right.
And that's the moment that they become more. And the reason I love it is one, Downton Abbey has a lot of love stories, and it's like a soap opera.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get my boyfriend to watch it. Like when this aired, I wasn't with my boyfriend when this aired. But when this aired, the whole series, I would actually DVR it, and
Right.
after everybody went to sleep because everybody thought it was boring because it's history, and I'm a big history buff. And but I loved it. And when this moment came on, it was a culmination of like awe moment, like oh, and then
Right. Right.
but not like this like blazing glory love. It was just showing that love comes in all kinds of ways, and that finding your one person could take a really long time, and that was just a beautiful moment for me. Plus, I love Carson and Mrs. Hughes, so or Mrs. Carson because eventually they get married.
See, there you go. Well, and I've seen pieces of the series. I've always thought it would be good for me to go back and watch. I know it's extensive, but it would be one of those things that I would probably enjoy, like in between other things that I'm watching. Watch a season of it or something like that. But no, I'm with you. I like history also, so I would find that fascinating. And yeah, I definitely appreciate that choice. That's a good choice. So we've got some comments. And so we probably should have looked at these earlier, so I apologize. So here we go. So Stargate. So we do have someone happy with this here. Jay's happy with the Stargate. One of the favorite episodes. Yep, that's right on. And favorite episode is the one where Daniel died of radiation poisoning. That is a really good episode. And I actually, I told Ace this. It was one of those things where I was going through what are the most important things to me, what really drives me, and then I got looking, and at first I would think, okay, I'm going to pick this episode right here or this moment right here, and then I would reconsider. So there were a lot of moments in Stargate where I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, the bouncing back and forth, like the professor messaged me yesterday, and we were like debating what we were going to talk about, and like throwing out ideas and stuff, and I threw out like a list, top 5 list, like a list of like these are things that I wanted to do, and I threw this one out, and I thought it was going to be so much easier than it was, but
It was difficult. It was hard. I probably could have had 10 things from almost every one of these
Oh yeah.
different shows. You know, there's the the very first episode of Stargate SG-1 has some great moments because you thought you knew what was going on with the movie, and it really kind of turns it on its head, and you're like, what the wow, that is a really cool concept. I can't believe they just went there with it.
Exactly.
So I could definitely see any of those. Anubis, anything with Anubis was really cool. The episode where Jack gets it's not the gold, it's the other one, the good ones that show up in his head where he bonds with them, but he thinks that he's a gold at first. Yeah,
Oh,
I know. So I mean, so there were many moments on this series, and there's an episode where Teal'c gets an apartment that is just awesome because
yeah.
it's just so odd that So there are episodes like that that I just love, where they discover the circuit in the Antarctic is really cool. So there were many moments where I was like, oh, what do I pick? But this one, I'm like, what is the one that culminates with me? And it was the time loop one.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yay.
and I know you had a hard time also. I think you were going through something similar with some of your episodes. You're like this, but oh this, oh but
Yeah. I have my number one. Like don't when I get to my number one, it is my number one
yeah,
TV moment of all time. And I had it. Everything else I started going through like movies and or TV shows that I really like. And then I had to narrow it down. Like I said, like mine are all come from hour-long episodics. They're not 30 minutes and they're not sitcoms. None of mine's going to be that. And that's not that I don't love those. I had some. I had The Office, where
right,
it's the Art and Pam's art show. Love that
right,
episode and that
yeah,
moment. But these are a little bit more, I don't know, fit into each other, kind of like the idea of why I liked them.
right.
And so I just went with this. So
Well,
yeah, lots of
I went with things that moved me, things that were important to me, and a lot of comedies. I love a good comedy. Like I will sit and watch the Goldbergs forever. I just find that absolutely hysterical.
I've been trying to get Shmoo to watch that show with me.
He should definitely watch it. I recommend it.
I love it because it's like, I grew up there, so I know it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So, but I don't know. There's not really any comedy moments to just take me to where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just saw that. You
Right.
know, there are times where you go, oh my gosh, that's hysterical that they did that, but nothing is as important and lasting to me. The next one is one of those scenes from a show that I love that I'm wearing the shirt of. That yeah, it really kind of solidified a couple characters for me. So it is the special hell scene from Firefly. It's from the episode that Our Mrs. Reynolds,
Right.
and it's where everybody assumes this girl that came on is all innocent and sweet, and she thinks that she got married to the captain and is going to give herself and everybody is like, you cannot violate this young thing, and she ends up being a scoundrel who's plotted this whole thing. But I love this scene with Shepherd Book and Mal looking at each other, and he just looks at him and says, if you do that to her, you will go to a special hell. And what was, the quotes on here, a level reserved for child molesters and people who talk in the theater. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, that's hysterical, but yet it's very telling.
Right.
And it really kind of integrated. My favorite character on Firefly was Shepherd Book, but
Okay.
it started here. And the whole reason is he's a man who has been very bad, trying to do much better in life and go by a new morality, but he's on a on a ship full of people that morality is a little more questionable at times, and I just love the way his character interacted and the look on Mal's face of like, I wouldn't do it. Plus, this also brings us to a new level of understanding of Mal. Of you kind of got a little bit into the series because this is episode 6. You're getting the feel that yes, he is a smuggler. Yes, he does things against the law, but he's got a very set morale code that he won't violate. And this episode really shows that. And that scene just really is very telling of why do you think I would do that? Why does everyone assume that? And so that to me is one of those moments. That whole episode is fantastic. And my wife, doesn't mind that episode. She doesn't care for Firefly, but the episode because he's sitting with his showing his butt at the end because he's sitting on the rock. She doesn't mind that as much. I don't know. I don't know. Good male nude butt if it's a good one for Captain Tight Pants without pants. So, anyways, that was my moment for. Let's see if we got any more comments out here. Figure that out. Feel free to join in, guys, with comments and tell us what you're thinking. Tell us what we're getting right, wrong, and tell us what you think. We don't have any new comments at the moment, so let's go back to here. So, which one are we going to do next, Ace?
We're going to do the one you don't know.
Oh, the one I don't know. Okay. Here's the one I don't know. Tell us about this.
Mrs. Maisel. If you guys haven't seen this show,
and I haven't.
It's on Prime. It's on Amazon Prime. It's an exclusive. And this is Madge Maisel, the marvelous Mrs. Maisel. This is actually in episode 1, the pilot episode, and this is near the end of it. And just to kind of give you, I don't want to do too many spoilers because you haven't seen it, and I really think you would really like. I think you and your wife would both like it. I actually got Shpoo to watch it with me, and he was unsure of it, but he ended up binge watching all 3 seasons with me. They're going to do a season 4. So the marvelous Miss Maisel is set in the 1950s.
Yep.
She is a Jewish wife in New York, and her husband wants to be a stand-up comic, but he's not funny. She ends up leaving her for, this is all in the first episode, so I'm not spoiling anything.
Right.
Her for his secretary, very 1950s Mad Men, let's
right.
Kind of thing. And this moment is the moment where she has found this out. She's trying to have a family get together with the rabbi and her parents and his parents and the kids, and it just goes to hell. This Easter Passover dinner goes to hell, and her dad yells at her. Her dad is played by Tony Shalhoub from Monk. Love him. And he yells at her and just is like, "You need a husband." This is 1950s.
Right.
Mother of 2 children who are the oldest is 3 or 4, and then the little girl's a baby. You need a husband. You go back and you get him back. And she has this clarity that she doesn't want him back right now.
Right.
Want him back, but right at this moment, no. And she goes to the comedy club where he tries to perform and fails, and she's drunk and she's in her nightgown and she's been walking through the rain, and she gets up on stage and she kills it. And I'm talking funny. When I say that, there are shows where I think something's funny but I don't laugh out loud.
Right.
Way more shows where I'm watching it with Shpoo and he does not laugh out loud. He just does not find it funny. When she's on stage, he actually laughed and he thought it was funny. And that moment that I showed you, there's a moment right after where she flashes the crowd, which in the 1950s. But that moment was the moment where I was watching it with Dakota the first time I watched it. And I had watched it. I didn't watch it when it first came out. I waited. It was in the 2nd season before I watched it. It had won so many Emmys. Amy Sherman Palladino, again, from Gilmore Girls fame, brought this character to life. Mm-hmm. She's the writer. She's the creator. She does witty banter. And I was like, I really want to see this. And so So Dakota actually got an Amazon Prime account because I didn't have one, and he's like, "Here, Mom, watch it." And we watched it, and we loved it. It is kitschy and fun. It is, you know, all the things of like a 1950s housewife, but she's vulgar mouth. She's very independent, and she is like, you know, what I hoped more women were like back then.
Right, right.
But I love that episode, and it was weird when it made my list. And the reason it made my list, and if people are watching, they're like, you had like 20 years. First of all, I only did 10, but you had 10 years, you had a decade, and you chose this show that not a lot of people have seen, and that it's not like a massively important moment in TV history. But when I watched it, one, I was going through a lot of stuff very similar. So her trying to find her independence after being married was something that really resonated with me. And then also, just the fact that she stays true to herself as a woman and grows her own independence in the 1950s is quite impressive of a story. So I love the show. Dakota loves the show. That's my son. If you guys don't know, he's 25. And my boyfriend, who's in his 40s, he's a little younger than me, but still, in his 40s, he loves the show. So it kind of, everybody I know who's seen it loves it.
And for those that don't know, AJ had Dakota when she was 4. It was a miracle from God. It was a virgin birth. So just so you know, she's 29.
You do know I also said my boyfriend's in his 40s and he's a little younger than me.
You know, fuzzy math and all that. So
it's math. We don't.
Yeah, whatever. Right. Yeah, we're talking shows, not math. Whatever. Yeah. No, that's awesome. No, that sounds like a really interesting show. I definitely need to check that out. It's funny, all the stuff that's on my list. I gave up. I cut cable cord, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. Thought I would end up having all this time, and all I've done is grow my list of shows to watch.
Oh my God! I haven't had cable since I moved into this house in 2000.
Right.
Or 2016. Sorry, 2016. So for 4 years I haven't had cable, but I have Netflix and I have
right. Right.
And I have Amazon.
Right. Well, yeah. Between, because I've got Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Disney, and now HBO Max.
Oh, I don't have HBO Max yet. I'm on the fence. I have to wait and see where this job. I got a job. By the way.
Yay! And that's important.
I know. So important. So I actually get a job. So I got to see where this job goes, and then when I'm financially more secure, I'll get HBO.
No, most definitely. No, the only reason I've got HBO Max is because my daughter wanted to be able to stream all the Friends episodes, and they apparently went to HBO Max. And she's like, I'm going to get this. Do you guys want to share? I'm like, well, since we share all the other ones, and she lives in our house, so it's not like we're sharing outside that. But I'm like, since we let you have all of these for free, yeah, if you would share, that'd be great. And I've been watching a lot of Game of Thrones. By the way, Game of Thrones did not make my list, but was one of the ones I got cut off because I have a moment.
I know. It didn't make mine either, and I have a moment in it too that I love and that is just so important.
So these are the things we're struggling with, guys. Just so you know, you think top 5 this would be easy, especially of the times that we limit it. This was hard. This was harder than talking politics.
Oh gosh, yeah. It really was. Maybe not as argumentative, but it was fun.
Well, the way we talked about it the other day wasn't argumentative. So, but yeah, I know. So, all right. Well, let's move on. So, number 3 on my list. What is number 3 on my list? Oh, that's right. Okay. Number 3 on my list is from a little show that captivated the world until it got so crazy that with questions that nobody knew the answers to, that people stopped watching. Well, we're talking Lost. So here's my seed. The end, and I forget which, if it's into season 2, I think, where they find the vault, the underground vault, and open it, and they just peer down into it at the end of the season. You're like, oh my gosh, what is this? that was one of those moments where like, okay, things are getting kind of weird, but I'm really into this. And where did this come from? And why is there a clock ticking down?
Oh my gosh. I stopped watching Lost after season one. I was like, one, I kind of thought I figured it out, and I actually was right. But it took seasons before I figured, like, before everybody else knew I was right.
Well, the interesting thing was the island is not purgatory. They went to purgatory in the sideways universe. So I
I was
don't know.
there. That's no. So it was one of those shows that I like would catch once in a while, but I wasn't like watching every episode.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
episode, I almost made a list of just cliffhangers, like the
yeah.
best cliffhangers. Oh my gosh, because that's a list.
That is a list. And the sad thing is, on that list are several shows that never came back for that next season.
Yeah,
We could do a whole, maybe that's what next week we talk about. Shows that we love that ended on cliffhangers that we don't have a conclusion to.
yeah. No, there's several of those, and Lost they did wrap it up and everything, and
Okay, the last season, the last episode, I think they were okay. People hate on them. They were okay. They weren't the greatest. Season 1 and 2 and 3 were amazing in my opinion. The whole thing of that you never really knew what was going on, I really dug because I like people that keep me guessing. And when you're throwing these weird things up there, now where did that come from? Why is there a polar bear on the island? What is this smoke thing? What the? I would end episodes with what the, and I would have to text my friends and say, what's going on? And that was the half the fun. I love the show. I'm actually a big J.J. Abrams fan, even though I know Keith was down on him last week. But love you, Keith. But no. So I, I had to throw that moment in because I remember that moment, and then that was the cliffhanger. Was him peering down into it for the end of the episode, into the season. You're like, well, crap, what's happening now?
the cliffhangers. I didn't put any cliffhangers on mine because of that reason. There were so many of them. Um, if you just go Walking Dead alone,
Yeah,
there
yeah.
are cliffhangers, and there's so many moments that are like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. That I
Well,
so
in another series that didn't make my list somehow with the scene.
there.
Yeah, I mean that was, and again, so guys, this was hard work coming up with this list because then, and it is, it's our favorites, so it's our individual favorites, so everybody's going to have a little different feeling on that.
And we
But
did parameters of it, like each of us, we did like at least the last 20. You went 20 years, I went 10. Um,
right,
and like I said, I didn't do any comedies. You didn't do any comedies.
nope, no comedies.
So I mean that's a big thing, and I know you wanted to keep. I know you watch more. I watch a wider variety of weird like history shows and stuff too. Part of my geekdom, and
Yeah,
watch a lot of like strict geek wonderfulness, and so yeah, it's just all on what we've watched and what we like. There are things that I watched this year that didn't make my list, but if I was to list like the top 5 moments from this year, things I watched, they would
right,
totally hit.
right.
You know,
So the question is, what would have Tiger King made your list?
no, it was a hot mess. No, what would have made my list is The Great um, from Hulu. I loved that show. And then Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, which I still haven't done my review on because every time I start writing it, I start crying. But those two are probably the best things I've watched on TV, series wise, that were new to me. That's not something I had known about,
Right, right.
but they didn't make my list.
No, I understand. Well,
Like,
it's hard to narrow those down. So
yeah,
yeah. So let's check and see if we have any comments. I think we've got some new comments. So let's pull
nice.
these up here. Um,
I don't get to,
oh,
so Professor has to tell me. Whoever's in charge of it.
oh.
That's what
So this is from GeekyKOOL, so I'm not sure who,
Probably
what
John.
member of GeekyKOOL is doing this, but that's great. So
It's probably John. John was like on, like he was doing stuff earlier.
and that's great, and yeah, I can see that completely.
Community
Uh,
episode 5. Love Community, by the way. Love it.
yeah, Community's great.
Oh, episode 11, Over the Edge. That's a good one. That is a really good one. Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I love whoever wrote this.
Well, and you know, some of these things like Deep Space Nine was before our time parameter. So was I think the new Batman adventures were also. So some of it was beyond what we had, but
right.
it's Keith's List Community. It's Keith's. Okay.
Babylon 5. Love it. Angel. Angel and Buffy. If we would have gone further, like they
Yeah,
would.
to the 90s. Yeah. Now the funny thing is, okay, so confession here, I did not see Buffy when it was on initially, other than episodes here and there, partially because I didn't get the station that it was on. It was on
Yeah.
some station that I didn't have, and so I knew that I loved the movie. And again, there's another movie that the series is actually better than the movie on. Love the movie, and
campy, and they went way. What? Stop watching. I did stop watching Lost. I'm sorry. I figured it out. Like my mom mad at me. You guys do not like. There was a Lost civil war at my house. Like my mom was like she was disabled and she was at home and I was her full time caregiver and we would watch shows together and then I would be like, okay, mom, this is what she would be asking me questions and I would answer them and she was like, I hate you. And I was like, why? She's like, I don't want you to. Part of it is my mom was like, I don't want you to watch with me anymore because I think you might be right. And and then I ended up being right. And like the same
so
reason. Same reason I tell Spoon not to talk during movies because he almost always figures out who
yeah,
it did or whatever, and I'm like, I don't want to know.
me too. I just bite my tongue and those sort of things. So,
He did
oh,
come.
I did comedy. All right.
On. Oh, it's Keith. Keith's first.
And Angel in 2005. Now here's the thing. So I caught Buffy later, and I watched it because it was on Netflix. So I ended up watching it and loved it, and I thought I would. And so I hated that it was the first time for me watching it because I was watching it really by myself then. Because I'd be like, oh, I can talk to somebody, but then they're like, yeah, that's old news. It's like 10 years old news. So I have never seen Angel. I've seen pieces of, well, I say that, you know, I've caught it on TV, but I'm not watching them in order. And with Buffy, and I've heard this is true of Angel, so you pretty much have to watch them sequentially to get it.
You do to a point. Like you,
Yeah.
it's like the CW universe.
You're right.
Heroes, they have intertwining storylines, and Angel was on Buffy, and
Right. Right.
but they you can watch them independently. It's just there will be times where you will like call somebody up and go, I don't know what this is. Like I watch The Flash and I watch Arrow, but I don't watch Supergirl.
No. What I was meaning was I didn't. I would catch episodes like so. Here's an episode from season 3. Here's an episode from season 5. Here's an episode from season 1, and really be like, I have no idea who these other than Angel. And then when Spike came on to it, I knew he was. The rest of them, I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna have to watch the show. So I still have yet to watch Angel, but I will.
You should. I went back just to 2010. That's the one that I went back to. So that's why Angel didn't go into my list. I love Angel. I love David. He, he went from Angel to Bones. I love Bones too, but it's not. There was no moments where I was like
Yep.
emotional. Some of the Buffy episodes do end.
So no, I agree.
Yeah. So that's kind of one of those things that.
So Buffy and Angel did not make our list.
But guess what? That's what's great. That's why we're doing this. We want to share what our favorites are with you guys, and we want you guys to share your favorites with us too. Because sometimes, he Professor hasn't watched The Marvelous Miss Maisel, and I didn't watch all the episodes of Lost. So there you go.
Yeah, yeah. I think you would have liked season 2 and 3 and maybe 4 of Lost. I mean, the last couple of seasons, again, they weren't bad. They were a lot better than a lot of stuff on TV. It just wasn't as good as what it had been early on. But that's the way of a lot of shows. So,
Yeah, I
all
agree.
right. So what one? Oh, I think I know which one we're doing next because it's the one you've got left.
I have
It's this one.
it's that one. Oh my god.
Yeah.
W the Flash. Okay, first of all, the Flash is one of my favorite superheroes of all time. I love Barry, but Wally West is my favorite Flash
Right. Right.
out there. And the thing about it is, this episode was the season finale of this first season,
Hmm.
and Barry Allen is all about trying to save his mom. It's the pivotal point in his childhood. You know, we all talk about like the superheroes and losing a parent, or losing, like, Spider-Man lost his parents and Uncle Ben, and Batman lost his parents. This is his pivotal moment.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but he has an ability that most superheroes don't have, and that means he can run so fast that he can go back in time. And so he's trained this whole season to do this. Like, this is the whole thing that he wants to do, is
Hmm.
go and save his mom. And I I love the Flash. I feel like it's one of the best comic book TV shows ever made. Like, genuinely, it has some moments in it that are just brilliant, and this one was one of them. And in this episode, Barry is there to save his mom, and his mom dies when there's two speedsters going around her and one stabs her. That's how she dies. And he's there to stop it. One of the speedsters is him,
Right.
Flashpoint. And he steps out to save his mom, and he, from the, like, another Barry, puts his hand up, and he realizes at that moment that if he saves his mom, he changes the whole timeline.
Right.
And he steps back and relives the most painful moment of his life again, knowing that he could stop it, but if he stops it, everything else changes. And he does the moment that I pointed, that I did the picture of. It was really hard to find a good picture, but this is after she's been stabbed and the two speedsters are gone. Him and Sana are gone, and he runs out and he goes up to her and he takes off his mask. And she doesn't know who he is, like, because
Right.
she Barry as a kid, but
Right.
she says, "You look like my father." And he looks at his dying mother and he gets to tell her something, and it is, "We're Barry and his dad are gone." And I was bawling so much during this episode. Um, it was that pivotal decision that, like, people always ask you if you could go back in time and change something, if you would.
Right.
And it's that moment that he could have been a hero of his own life, but in doing so, he could have destroyed everything else. The fabric of time, he doesn't know what will happen, and he has to choose and sacrifice saving his childhood and his, you know, and being his hero to be everybody else's hero. And it's a beautiful, beautiful moment. I was actually like, you and I've talked about this, and then it's funny because we're like, we're binge watching Comic Book Men, and
Mhm.
Kevin Smith has directed some of the episodes of The Flash, but not this season, but, like, later seasons and stuff like that. And in Comic Book Men, Kevin Smith said, "There's one episode that just made me cry," and I was like, "It's the first episode." It's the season finale of the first season. Like, it's that. I
Right.
knew what it was. It's an amazingly acted, brilliantly written, and so poignant in the Flash story that was done on TV.
Right.
They don't get movies right a lot of the time.
Right.
they got this right.
They
And
did.
it's just beautiful. And it's one of my top two are very geeky. It is my superhero fantasy of an emotional charged TV show, and
Right.
so that's my number two.
And that's a great pick. That's a great show. I agree. Probably the best thing on CW at the moment. And so, yeah, I agree. Flash has done really well. They have done very, very good. Keith had said this about Arrow for us. Arrow was great until season 3. I gave up on Arrow halfway through season 1. I'm like, is he the Punisher or what are we doing here? I gave up and then I came back at the end because I was told I needed to come back and check it out. And then I enjoyed the rest of season 1 and then season 2. And season 3 hit and I'm like, so I suffered through season 3 and 4 and finally said, I'm done. So
I watched the first, I watched like the first 3 episodes of Supergirl.
yeah.
Supergirl's never been one of my favorites. I'm just not a Supergirl. Like, she's okay, but she's not one of my favorites. Um, and I watched the crossover episodes, like when they have
Mhm.
all 4 episodes. So you have to know if you want to know what happens to Barry, you have to watch the other ones.
Right.
But I watched them because I want to know what happens to Barry.
Right. Right.
All about the Flash on the CW for me. I think that show, if anybody out there wants to make comic book TV, they should study that show and how they've done it because they did it right.
I agree with that.
And they did, Killer Shark. Like, seriously, they did Killer Shark on the TV show. Like, what the heck? It's amazing. So yeah, no, I love that show. So
Well, that's a good one. I will say I grew up. My father was a big Superman fan, but I never really liked Superman that well. I always felt like he was just had it all together too much and was too powerful. Even though you'd have him face other big bad guys, I don't know. I just was like, eh. But Supergirl, I had a connection with, and I think it was when I was reading, she was still like in her late teens, just getting independence, and so I kind of admired that. Plus, I always liked a strong female character,
yeah,
but she was also emotionally still trying to figure things out. So she wasn't.
Batgirl.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I like Batgirl too for the same sort of reasons. But Supergirl, I was like, I actually read she had a comic series in the '80s before the crisis killed her called The Daring Adventures of Supergirl. I have every issue of that. I loved it. I was one of those weird boys that were reading girl comics, but I loved it. I thought she was awesome. So I watched the show, and the first season I really liked, even though it still bugs me they don't call her Linda, they call her Kara.
Yeah.
And they did that in the comics, and I'm like, okay, fine. I know I'm a little too silver aged, a little too bronze age for you guys, but I always liked her. I've enjoyed the Supergirl show. Some of the stuff I'm like, yeah, okay, take her or leave it on the show, but I've enjoyed it. But Flash has done better.
Yeah.
So a couple more things here for us, comment wise. Parking. Now that is the Peacekeeper Wars is excellent. I agree with that. That is a very moving scene.
I love that scene. Farscape is one of those shows that people like. It's weird because it's not on the forefront of most people's minds
Right, right.
shows. And then you bring it up, and almost everybody who's actually seen it is like, "Oh my gosh, yes!" It's weird that TV shows do that, like in your
Yeah,
head.
yeah.
So I would say
Well,
like a giant filing cabinet, and that's the Bruce Almighty scene where he pulls out the filing cabinet and just goes
yeah.
through. That's how my brain works. That's how I file things away. It really actually is. I visualize that, and so things like when people bring up Farscape, I'm like going through and I'm like, why is that so far back?
Right, right. Well, I'm with you. Farscape is great. It's an odd show because it kind of a little all over the map on what
Right.
it is, and then you've got the Muppet characters on there, which is just an interesting ploy. But I'm like, but I love Labyrinth and Dark Crystal, So why does that bug me? That shouldn't bug me. I should be okay with that. In fact, even Star Wars, I mean, Yoda was a Muppet. So anyway, but yeah, Farscape's awesome. One more comment from Keith here. The rest of the reality shows are okay. So no way. Yeah, I think we all agree with that. So even though I like Legends of Tomorrow just because I like the silliness of it.
I liked it, but I just it's one of those things like when I see the Flash, even the campy episodes, not campy episodes, it's done in a way that it's so resonates with the characters.
Right.
I was a little taken back with Wally because I love the
Mm.
original redheaded
Right.
smartass. Oh my gosh, you just like, Drew and I were talking, and I asked him a question, and this is a very interesting question. I asked him if you could be best friends with any superhero, who would you be best friends with? You don't have powers, you just like hang out. And mine was Wally West. Like I would totally hang out with Wally West. Like that guy would crack me up so much.
Right.
So,
So who did Shmoo say?
um,
Shmoo say.
Spooky.
Blah.
I cannot remember who.
Okay. All right.
But
So I can tell you, I don't want to be friends with Peter Parker.
he would pick Dick Grayson to hang out with.
Okay.
For reasons, except Dick Grayson can be a little bit more serious.
Right.
He
I
has
can see that.
he has his smart ass moments, but Spoo really loves the Batman,
Right.
Batman, but he loves the villains in that universe.
Right.
Or that, not that I don't, but more than I do. So
No, I'm with you. Of all of the Batman related characters, so it would have to be Starfire because she dated Robin. So
So the other question I asked was, who would you date?
Oh,
His Starfire was his. He would
I
date.
can see. Yeah, well, I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, okay.
I agree.
So I actually prefer Wonder Girl. So I don't know. I think she's hotter than Starfire.
These are the conversations I have in my life.
Even though I would date Mary Jane.
Yeah, you like the redheads.
I do like the redheads. Mary Jane, wow, just face it, Tiger. You hit the jackpot.
All right, so what's your number two?
Okay, so we got a couple more comments from Keith, and then we'll do number two. Farscape did what Avalon 5 didn't. Oh, I get that. I completely understand that, but it's fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and I don't mind a little camp once in a while. In fact, I don't mind it at all if I know I'm going to get it, if I'm anticipating it. So I understand people who don't like it. I just know that I find it fun. So my number two comes in at which one is it here? Oh, it is the only one in the last few years that, and it's still on the air. So it is Stranger Things. And it is the end of season 2, final episode, the dance scene. Because these kids just went through all of this stuff, and you are doing something that's so typical 80s. You're having a junior high dance, and the boys don't know how to dance. You've got the scene with Dustin sticking his hands on the butt of, I forget what her name is at the moment, the one guy's older sister. And getting his hair all done up. I mean, that whole scene. And then at the very end, you're pulling away and you still see the upside down monster looming out there.
Yeah.
To me, that was like, oh, that was the perfect ending. Oh my gosh. So that scene resonated with me. It made me love those kids even more. I can't wait for season 4. And so that was my aha moment. I mean, I loved the first season. The first season was amazing. I almost picked the very first episode where they're playing D&D, because that to me, I'm like, oh, that really resonated with me. And there are other scenes through that series that just, I was like, oh, that's such an important scene. But when I kept coming back to it, it was the dance scene that really said, this is my big moment here.
So mine, because I actually had one of the Stranger Things on my list that didn't make it.
Right.
was the where they go and she dumps him.
Yeah.
Where in that very 80s outfit, and she's like, "I dump you."
Yep. Yep. In the mall. At the mall.
It was very like for her, and at the
Yeah.
you're like you're worrying about your it's very junior high, very early high school. You're worrying
Yeah.
about boyfriend when you know what's out there. You know, like I feel like it's like that's so kids. It was
Yeah.
no, that one almost made my list.
I can see that because yeah, exactly. That series is so well done. I love that series. My favorite series on television right now. So, all right. So that's my number two. Let's go to your number one. And people that know you will not be surprised by number one, other than maybe the moment you picked. They probably won't be surprised by the series.
Okay, so this moment, this moment right here, I cannot watch it without crying. Um, it is Doctor Who season 5, episode 10. It's the Vincent Van Gogh episode. I the whole episode is beautiful and I love it. But if you haven't watched it, I'm not going to go into the history of Doctor Who and like all that stuff. But he travels through time, and they go. Him and Amy go, and they meet Vincent Van Gogh, which is like a dream of mine. Like I love Van Gogh, and what people, a lot of people, unless they've studied art or if they like know anything about like history and stuff, Van Gogh was a very tortured.
Yeah. Right.
Um, he didn't make any money. His
None
whole
at all.
living, his art was considered crap. He tried to pay for food with his art, and they
Yeah.
wouldn't take it, and
Right.
so he'd eat out of the garbage, and he would eat. Like it was not. His life was not easy, and in the episode, he sees not like humans. That's why his paintings are very fluid and everything. He has an inner sight to where he can see the monsters like that the doctor fights and all of that. And it drives him crazy. And if you know the history of Van Gogh, you know he got like he was mentally insane.
Right.
He cut off his own ear. He was in an insane asylum,
Mhm.
and he died a pauper who couldn't
Right.
give. Um, the doctor did something that he doesn't normally do, um, and he did it. And I know the doctor did it because he knew it wasn't going to change the fact that this man had a mental illness, and it
Right.
wasn't the history. But Van Gogh thinks he's nothing, and they bring him to the present, and they take him to a Van Gogh exhibit in a prestigious museum. And Van Gogh is walking around his own paintings. Some of them he hasn't even done yet, and he's seeing all these people admire them, and it's this beautiful moment that he realizes that his work is something.
Right. Right.
The moment I chose. I chose
Right.
when they asked the guide to explain Van Gogh, to explain his importance. And the guide is like he's the most important artist like of all time of a history. Like his vision changed art as we know it. He was prolific. He was if only he could see this. And Van Gogh has his back to the sky, and you just see this realization of even though he doesn't know his own self worth, that
Yeah.
other people will appreciate it someday. And he starts crying, and I cannot get through that episode without bawling my eyes out. And it, if you ask me anytime, my favorite episode or my favorite moment in TV, and there's a lot of them. I
Right.
mean, back to the 60s and the 50s, I love old movies and old TV shows. You ask me what one moment touched me more than anything else and left an impression on me, it's that moment. Because
That's
it
yeah.
made me realize that my life, and sometimes I have very low self esteem, and everybody who knows me knows this, but even if I can't see my own self worth and I can't see the things that I've done as like anything good or anything, it doesn't mean that in the future it's not going to be seen, or that other
Right.
people see it.
Right. Right.
It didn't change his life. The doctor knew it wasn't going to change his life.
Right.
But it gave him a moment of clarity in this world of chaos that lived in his head, that his chaos would bring beauty to others. And that moment, hands down, best moment I've ever watched on TV. Best moment.
I really should have gone before that. I should have done mine first because that's hard to compete with right there. And I'll say I had several moments that I looked at and thought about with Doctor Who. That you know the Pompeii episode where he decides to rescue the people of Pompeii. Isn't supposed to, but does it anyway because he's told, well, what makes you so sure this moment's fixed?
Right.
And then he's like, oh. So that episode, the Bad Wolf episode where the TARDIS blows up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wow, that was a wow moment.
The doctor's wife is one of my favorite
The doctor's wife. Yeah. Yeah. The library.
I've seen every episode of Doctor Who that you can. There are missing episodes, if anybody who really knows the Doctor. And I've seen a couple of those because I actually got bootleg copies of them when I was little with my mom before they went missing. But I haven't seen all of them. But every episode you can see.
Right. Right.
And that's like decades and decades of
it is.
Some of it good and campy and funny, and some of it emotionally driven. But
right.
Van Gogh episode, if you don't watch any other Doctor Who episode ever, it is a standalone episode. You can watch it and not watch any other Doctor Who episode, and still, as long as you understand he's a time traveler and he is a companion.
Right.
That's all you need to do to watch that episode and get a feel of the heart that goes into that show and the heart that it's trying to do. So yeah.
The episode where they go back to kill Hitler also is really interesting. So, but yeah. So I agree with you on that. That's a great moment. Once you told me that was your moment, I went, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That probably is that. Thinking about it, that probably is the greatest Doctor Who moment. That is a phenomenal choice. So we're going to go with my choice, even though it's not as emotionally driven. It doesn't wrench your heart, and Van Gogh is a huge connection. That's awesome. I'm going with something a little more, a lot more just pure geekdom because I really geeked out at this moment.
Okay.
And here's a series that was a reboot of another series, which I usually hate reboots of series because you usually screw it up.
Yeah.
Again, as we said, sometimes you can take a movie and then expand it into a series and it works out okay. A lot of times it doesn't, but a lot of times it does. But rebooting a series and putting a whole new twist on it, that's hard to do, especially when somebody loves the series already, the original series, which I did.
Oh.
And I'm talking about Battlestar Galactica. And so here's my moments. Boomer. When Boomer finds out that she is a Cylon and realizes that everything she believed was completely a lie.
Right.
Yeah. And that's an emotional time also. Not as emotional as Van Gogh,
no.
but definitely a very emotional, appealing moment on the series where a character you've grown to love all of a sudden comes to realization she's a part of what she considers to be the bad guys.
Right. No, I can see that. No, I think that's very emotional. Like when you are raised your whole life to believe one thing.
Right.
And then to come to find out your identity or who you are or whatever is not what you think. And
right.
Like people and the thing that emotionally charges that is not that she is not what she thinks, because she's still her.
Right.
But
right.
Every person who knew, or everything was it's all lies. Like her whole life is lies.
Right. Right.
That aren't lies. nice. Even the thing, but that moment, I actually really, really, really connect with that moment on a personal level. That moment when you realize that everything you knew or you thought you knew was not the truth is an emotional moment.
Yeah. Right.
So
Well,
I
yeah.
think it's a good
Well,
moment.
how many of us have come to that point of realizing I'm not what I thought I was. I'm still the same person, but maybe there are some differences in me that I have to kind of figure out how this works.
Right.
And
I mean, and how many of us like grew up thinking one thing or grew
right,
up raised one way, and then when we got older, we either whether it's like you have a realization that you're not that way and you
right,
way,
right,
or it's like it's really an identity thing of like this is not who you actually are. Like
right,
there are people who go through life that I know and that I love who were adopted or who were born in the wrong bodies, and like their identity, and they're pushed into an identity, and then when they get older and they start realizing it, that realization that they're not who everybody thought they were, and then they
right.
internalize that. No, that resonates with so many people.
Yeah, I agree. So that was so guys, that was our top five list. And again, that we had so much that we wanted to add in. So much we didn't get to put in because we limited it to five. We could have put top 30 and struggled with it. And then we could have been here for 4 hours talking about it. But we decided not to do that today, even though we've got a few more comments. So let's read those comments, and then we'll get our sign off. And we appreciate everybody that's watching and that has watched and will watch. Keep watching. Remember, Geeky Cool is back. Cool with the K, just like Cool in the Gang. We're back on. We are putting out new stuff every day. Make sure to go out and check us out. But let's get to these comments here. Okay, so here's a comment from
Red wedding.
Geeky. I agree, but let me say this: the next episode with the death of Joffrey is more my moment.
My moment was actually the revenge from the red wedding with Ari going there.
So here's what's going on. I have seen through season 3, or is it 4 now? I've just and it,
Faster.
I I didn't have HBO.
Okay.
So I didn't have HBO. Somebody had bought me season 1 a long time ago. I watched it. I loved it. I knew I would like it. People were talking about it, but I'm like, what do I do? I didn't have cable. I cut the cable, so there's no way I could even at that point get HBO. So now I've got HBO Max. So now I'm spending time after my children go to bed watching this because And the really funny thing was season 1 when I was watching it on DVD that somebody had bought me. Every time there was a nude scene, and season 1 has a ton of nude scenes. Every nude scene, my wife would walk in, and what are you watching? I'm not watching porn. I'm watching Game of Thrones.
No, the whole show does just be like, I'm sorry, no, I'm just watching Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is one of those shows that I really loved until the very last season.
Yeah, that's what people tell me. I'm hoping not to hate it. I'm usually a lot more. I give a lot more grace to people on stuff like that. But we'll see.
Yeah, I feel like the problem is they got so far ahead of the original writing.
Right. They did.
That they were just trying to pull things together, and everything. But no, Game of Thrones, the Red Wedding is really good.
Yeah, it is.
Great. I could do, and I should probably do a top 5 just Game of Thrones episodes. I have 5. I probably have 10.
Well, yeah, you could do that too. And again, I will get there. I'm like I think I went from finishing one season to starting another one and finishing it within a week. So I'm plugging through it.
Oh yeah.
So
I'm
so
I'm like all of it, all the seasons.
well, and I had people that would say I've got these on DVD or Blu-ray, I can lend you, but then nobody ever lent them to me. They would just tell me that, and then it was almost like, here, let me promise you something and never give it to you. So anyway, but so on with the comments. Fringe. I love Fringe. The first episode is awesome. I agree. The episode where they actually look across the mirror universe, that episode actually sticks out more to me. But
So along the lines of Fringe, because I liked Fringe, but it was not like one of my favorites. But Black Mirror,
yeah, yeah,
I loved Black Mirror. Like I had a hard time. I had 2 episodes on my list for Black Mirror that I
yeah,
didn't.
yeah.
Um, but no, if you haven't guys haven't watched Black Mirror, go watch it. It is
The episode with the oh, and it has what's her name from oh gosh, um, from Captain America and oh, Haley Atwell, and I love Haley Atwell because of her hair and well because she's gorgeous, and she's a great actress. So, but the episode where she gets the android that kind of reminds her of her husband, and wow, that is so crazy, but that's so awesome.
Black Mirror is what when people ask me to describe it, I'm like it would be like if the Twilight Zone hit technology and
Yeah,
decided to be creepy.
yeah,
Like that's
exactly.
exactly what it is. It is beautifully written. They can all tie together or they can all be watched separately. It's really really good. I really liked it. So
So best
that's
science fiction series on TV today is The Expanse. You know, I've heard that. I've not seen it.
I haven't seen it either. I
I
have
know it's on Amazon Prime,
yes.
and it's on my list on Amazon Prime, but then I get distracted with other things that I need to watch, and
And
it's
that's
there.
fine. That's the thing with like the whole streaming sites is when we were kids, even when we were adults, we would have TV shows on weekly.
Yep.
Have like you would see something and then like what's gonna happen on it, and you have to wait a whole week and so you would set aside that time to watch it. Even DVRing it like I did with like Downton Abbey and stuff. Like there was time that I set aside for it. Now that there's streaming sites and you have like whole seasons downloaded at one time, and it's like 12 episodes or 10
Right.
episodes, whatever it
Right.
is, to get through all of it, it takes a time. It takes time. So I have a list of shows to watch.
And there's so much good stuff out there now. So the that's actually a good problem. But yeah, there's so much good stuff, so much available to stream. And now, you talk about as a kid, the problem with that as a kid was if your parents decided they were going to go see somebody and you weren't going to be able to be home to watch that show,
You
you
never.
missed it. Yeah. If it was really good, it goes syndication. You could catch reruns, but
I
a lot of shows never made it there.
I was talking to Lex the other day. She was watching and she's like, I gotta go to the bathroom, and she paused, and then she went to the bathroom and she came back and she's like, oh, and I was like, when I was little, we had to wait for commercials.
Right, exactly.
Oh, the Pandorica opens. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's a great one.
I could do I could do a top 100 Doctor Who moments. The Pandorica opens is one of them. Also, when Amy has River or has
Yeah, yeah,
Melody, and she's explaining to Melody the baby who her father is, and everybody like was like when she's like he's 1,000 years, thousands of years, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's the Doctor, the baby's dad. Like no, it's Rory. He was the last Centurion. Like, he waited 1,000 years outside of a box to protect the woman he loved. Like that moment is why Amy and Rory are my favorite companions, just because their love story has nothing to do with the Doctor. He's
well,
just
the interesting thing, especially at the beginning, it was almost kind of it was all Rory,
yeah.
and Amy was kind of like, I'm kind of interested in this doctor guy. I don't know what's going on here. And then
It was
so
it was that moment, and I have most of my friends are men. It's a thing. I don't really have a lot of girlfriends. My best friend's a guy, and it was that moment when people were like, "Oh, she's interested in him," and I was like, "I don't think she is. I think she's just like worried about getting married." And there's her best friend who happens to be a guy, and that's
right,
how I look at that. And
yeah,
it's but people don't see that. They don't see platonic love as something that can happen. Um, and
which is a shame.
up until that point, a lot of the doctor's companions, most of the doctor's companions, had feelings for the doctor. The newer ones.
Of the newer ones, right, right. Except for Donna.
Right. Donna she was one of my favorites. But like
She's
Rose,
hysterical, yeah.
Martha, like they all had
Yeah.
like on the doctor. Donna didn't at all.
Nope.
I would put him in his place.
Which I loved about Donna.
I know. Amy was she loved him, but it was platonic.
Right.
So,
I agree with that.
No, the Pandora opens. Oh, I don't get to talk Doctor Who. Rescue the people trapped. Oh.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great scene. That's in the original miniseries right there when the attack happens. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. Oh my
So,
God, see so many. You see how hard it is, you guys.
yeah.
Just picking 5. We could do 5 every decade. We could do 5 of every kind of show. But we didn't do that. We just said last 20 years. I just went to last 10 because I couldn't. And
A little overwhelming.
it was so overwhelming. And top 5 lists should be easier, but they're not. They're actually a lot harder than people think.
They are.
Especially when you're well-rounded nerds like us and geeks like us.
True.
Because we love so many different things. It's hard to narrow things down. So I'm glad you guys
though. I went to the beginning of the 2000s just because there were so many shows that were I was so into at that point. So, and I was like, well, what were the moments here? What could I make as one of my favorite moments? And yeah, it just naturally flew that way for me.
So hard. So, what are your guys' favorite moments in TV from the last 20 years? We'll just do that. We don't need to go too far back right now. Maybe next couple of times, or maybe we'll do some things.
Comments down below.
Yeah, comment down below. Go to our site.
Yeah.
We have new stuff going up all the time. We do trailers, we do articles, we do opinion pieces, and everything like that. And that's GeekyKOOL.com. Now you can find us on Facebook. You're watching us on Facebook more than likely. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter. But if you really want to check us out and see what we're about and what we offer you guys in the world of the geeky news and everything, go to GeekyKOOL.com. Read our articles. Let us know what you think of them. If you want to write for GeekyKOOL, even if it's just a one-time thing, if you have an idea for a great article, or you want to do something more frequent, let us know. Larry there is the one you need to get a hold of. But if you get a hold of me, I'll pass your information along. We're always looking for more contributors. The more the merrier in the geeky world. So go check us out on GeekyKOOL.com.
Couldn't have said it better. Make sure to like and subscribe on the videos. So check it out on YouTube. Also, make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure that you're on the list on Facebook, that you're a fan, and and anywhere else you can promote us. That we so appreciate that. So
we get up to how many likes are we on Facebook?
507.
507. Okay, if we get up to 550 by the end of summer, so by September 23rd, I will give away an original piece of artwork.
There we go, people. You can get yourself an original piece of artwork right here for the 0 price tag, and it's a steal because AJ's stuff is awesome. So
our page and share our page with other people who like stuff like this, and then I will draw a name out of all the people who liked our page. We'll do a number generator, and one lucky person will win an original art piece. And when I say original, you will get to help me decide what it is that I create for you.
Wow, that's really cool. That's awesome, guys. So check us out, like us. Make sure you like our YouTube channel, like our posts here, promote us any way you can if you can, because we're doing this for free. But that those likes actually do help and maybe generate some money to help pay for stuff. So so we would appreciate that. And if we could make $1 or something, that would be awesome.
We could get paid.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
Love, guys. Love.
it is out of love. So
So
also let's go out and make sure you guys, while you're liking us and doing all this stuff, make sure you go out and check out some of our friends here. Check out the Nerd Informants out on YouTube and Facebook.
yep. Josh and Tim, they're out of Branson. They bring you nerd news. They bring you movie reviews when movies are out, and they're coming back hopefully. And they do like video games and all of that. But they're amazing and funny. And Tim and Josh are just great. So go check them out. Nerd Informants, YouTube and Facebook. I think they're on Twitter as well. But just go give them a like on Facebook and go subscribe to YouTube, and you'll see all kinds of great videos.
We need to get them on the show. We need to see if we can arrange them to come on like next week or
I,
something.
I will message them. I will
Oh,
message.
sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Because I know them, but you know them a lot better.
I used to play D&D with them.
We should do that again. We need to get a D&D group. This would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
We could record it like this. This would be awesome.
Oh yeah, we could. They do the D&D like online now. You can don't even have to be in the same house.
I know. So that would be a lot of fun. Also, guys, make sure you check out Keith and Gary over at Pop Culture Minefield. They always do awesome stuff. Keith is often making comments like he was here. We do appreciate that, Keith. And Keith and Gary are awesome. If you're watching us because we are friendly for your kids and your kids can watch us and not have to worry about things, you may not want them to go over there as much. But if they're teenagers or if they've heard bad words before, Keith and Gary are very funny, very informative.
I would say Keith and Gary are the PG-13
of
the world, but they come up with some great things. They had some great scoops. If you guys haven't checked out their video from July 4th, go check that out on YouTube. They got some scoops.
They got some big scoops.
Hinted about it on our video last week. He was our guest. But go check them out. Be sure when you go check all our friends out, go give them not just a like on their video, but go hit that subscribe button. That way you guys can see all their videos. And when they get new content up, you guys get to do that. And it doesn't take much. It's just a little button you hit, and then it comes onto your playlist. And if you want to watch it, you watch it. But it helps us out, and it lets us know that you guys like what we're doing, and we really, really need that. We appreciate that and stuff like that. Now, speaking of going and giving subscribes on YouTube, we also have another friend. He's the Scallywag himself, and that's Scallywag Productions over on YouTube. He's on Facebook as well, and Twitter, and Instagram. The toys behind me, he does a collectible of the day every night, and he posts it. But he does a lot of videos on pop culture movies, explaining what he hated about a movie, which is a big thing. But he's funny, and you guys could go check him out. But be sure when you go check them out, if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, because that helps them a lot. It helps us out, it helps them out, and it's a way of us knowing that what we're doing is what you guys want to see.
And if you have something you want to see, or if you want us to do something different, leave us a comment. Tell us what you'd like us to do. We're always looking for ideas. As AJ mentioned, we were talking about this last night and finally came up with this list that ended up being hours of toiling work. But you can tell us what you want to see. So, but do thank you guys. We do have a couple more comments real quick from Keith here. And artwork. See, Keith is all about the artwork there. So, and then D&D. So maybe we need to get a group of video geek video bloggers doing D&D. I can see this working. This would be awesome.
That would be great. I would love that. I'm all about the D&D. Thanks, Keith. You rock too.
You do, Keith.
Yeah, as long as I get to play somebody a little snarky, I'm good.
Oh, well, I think we can arrange that. So we will try to get that right, because I would love to do a video format like this, do D&D. I'm okay DMing. I'm not great, but I'd be okay. But if we get somebody that's an expert, we can use that. So if you're out there and you like D&D and you want to join us, let us know, because we're happy to have you join us here. So, well, that's all we've got for tonight. Thank you, guys. Hope you enjoyed the list.